Hello, and welcome to my desk. Tonight we're doing another iteration of the Oracle Intuition series, where we pull a card, examine it, and see what we find to sharpen our intuition when it comes to reading cards, whether it be Oracle or Tarot, as I now have a little Tarot series going. But tonight we're going back to our tried and true, trusty Green Witches Oracle deck. My old standby. So let's shuffle them up and we'll pull a card and see where we go from there. Oh, okay. So again, I'm going to try and block the bottom words just out of frame. And again, I will insert the regular color photo because the lighting here can change the interpretation of the color grading a little bit. But this is your first look, and then I'll put it on the screen here for you to see. And then we're going to look at it, and I'm going to write down what I see. If you've never done this with me before, I guess I should have explained at the beginning just a little brief synopsis. So we're going to pull a card, and then we just visually look at it, write down every single thing you see, everything from a color to a shape to a feeling, emotion, whatever it is. Write it down, anything that jumps out to you. And then we're going to look at the words and interpret those into our interpretation. And then we'll go to the book, read the book description, and then there's a question, like discussion question, thoughtfulness question that is tied to each card that asks you, that helps you further develop your intuition, or sorry, not your intuition, but your reading of the card. So this is an exercise really to reinforce your intuitive reading of the cards. So before you get to what the deck author tells you the card is, what does it mean personally to you? So that's what we're doing here. So now, again, I will have the card on the screen here for you. And then you can write down everything you see. Okay, I am done with my observations. I didn't have nearly as many this time as I have for previous cards. This one perplexes me a bit. So I'd be interested to know what anyone else saw for sure, or if there's people still interpreting it. It just feels a little confusing to me, and I don't feel like I'm reading it correctly. I feel like my reading's being tainted a lot by just kind of my internal thought process right now, which is a little bit disoriented and in disarray. So this is what I got. I wrote down just basic observations. Three bottles. Three. I took note of the pentacle on this bottle. I said bow because it seems like there's a bow here, and maybe there was one here, but it's been undone. So I'm going to add unraveling to the list of words I wrote here. Then I wrote down ruby because, although you can't see in this color grading here, this little stone is red. And then I wrote down crystals just because there's crystals coming out of this cork, and there's some appear to be scattered on the bottom of the card here, but it also kind of looks like pistachios, which is weird. And then I wrote down, this is where things got weird for me. Shards broken, chaos, flowers, trapped, growth, disorder, disarray, water, sloshing, like sloshing around in the bottle, this one. Wind, earth, rock, which I got all that from this one. And then I also wrote down binding, delicate, because the bottles are kind of ornate, ropes, cross, X, maybe control, question mark. And then I just wrote down unraveling, and to that I would add unruly. So what I'm seeing when I read this back to myself is a whole mess, which is, I don't think, what the messaging of this card is meant to be. I haven't read these down here yet. But for me, I'm seeing a lot of care being taken and destruction. So it's kind of polarizing. To me, this card is very polarizing. And that just goes to show, I mean, probably a little bit into where my head is at right now, but also how very much look at the flame on that candle. You can't see it. It's insane. Look at that. She's crazy. How very much your interpretation will vary based on circumstance. And that's kind of one of the core lessons that I want to get across, is like, your intuition is very important when you're reading cards, because if you only ever go by the factual meaning of the cards, you're not going to get as much out of them as if you allow yourself to read them from the state you're in and the context of what you're reading for and who you're reading for and where they're at. You have to allow those things into your interpretation, or else they're going to be meaningless, or you're going to be trying to find meanings that aren't there and relate them to the issue, and it's just going to get confusing. You know what I mean? So I hope this is useful to anyone. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the keywords provided on the card, which are invigoration and empowerment. So we're either of those. Oh, come on, focus. Were either of those words that came up to you? Did you get invigoration or empowerment out of this card? I still don't see it. In the abstract, I can see how a potion, if I relate the word potion to these words, invigoration and empowerment, I can see how that would be invigorating. Hydration, nourishment, invigoration, empowerment. So all of those things do make sense. But for me, in the context that I'm in, none of that came up. It was all about chaos and disorder and broken things. So isn't that interesting? I'm really interested to know if anyone else got that. I think usually I take into context the name of the card, and this time I didn't even really do that. I knew in the abstract that the name of the card was potion, and what I was looking at was potions, but I was really insular in my focus of the details of the card this time. And other times I've been usually pretty, at least partially on point for what the card means. And this time I just missed the mark entirely for what the intended meaning of the card was. So not what the card means, but like the intended base messaging for the card. And now that I see that, I can kind of reshape what I saw to incorporate that. So in all of this mess that I saw, which is a window into, my life, my issue, whatever I'm reading about, I can then flip that and say invigoration and empowerment. So in the whirlwind of all of the stuff that I saw, which was kind of this bit of like chaos, grounding, broken growth, I need to find a way to stabilize and empower myself within that. So the messaging that I was getting was a window into where my mind is. And then the messaging of the card is saying, in all of that, you need to focus on this. Focus on yourself, focus on nourishing yourself, invigorating yourself, and empowering yourself. So if we just pulled the card and we just looked at, okay, this is potion, it means invigoration and empowerment, and you might not be aware of what the context of that is. So you might just be like, okay, I need to be invigorated and empowered. But what is the context in which you need support, in which you need strength? It's not going to be everything. It's going to be all of the things that you saw when you first looked at the card before you knew what it was trying to tell you to focus on. You need to apply the card focus to the area of focus in your life that you saw when you looked at the card. Does that make sense? So now, in the context of that, now you have a broader context for whatever issue you're reading about. Then you can take into account the more elaborate book reading. So now we need to find the potion card in the book. That is the fastest I have ever found one of these in this book. Can we get focus? A little bit. Potion, invigoration, empowerment. Card meaning. The potion card tells you that a small infusion of intention, even just a drop, can invigorate you and get you back on track if you're feeling out of control. Any act done with intention can stimulate forward momentum. Choosing to empower yourself with a small gesture of concentrated magic can refresh you enough to galvanize your motivation. This may be as simple as casting a basic spell or meditating in nature. Not every action needs to be huge, and not every change is immediate and sweeping. Don't discount the magic that a tiny gesture or moment can create. Just a drop will do. So, when I take that into account of what I got from the card and then the keywords of the card, so it tells me that even though I'm getting the messaging of invigoration and empowerment, it doesn't necessarily mean that has to be something so huge and overwhelming and significant. It needs to be this massive thing to put towards effort. If where you're at in life feels overwhelming and feels out of control, and you need to kind of bring back into yourself and focus on yourself and focus on focus on yourself. But don't become obsessed about it, Even the smallest thing can make a positive change. So making sure you're hydrated, making sure you drink a full glass of water, making sure, you take an hour, half an hour, 20 minutes out of your day to do something that you really enjoy and that relaxes you. So small things, sitting down with your coffee in the morning and just drinking it by yourself, anything that is small and meaningful can make a positive change. So it doesn't have to feel like this huge thing. Even if something else feels overwhelming and this card is telling you, you need to reinvigorate yourself, you need to nourish yourself, you need to empower yourself. Don't feel like that's some insurmountable task. All the little things matter towards positive change. One drop in a pond creates ripples that extend forever. So again, again, that adds a lot more context, So focus on yourself, but don't feel like that focus needs to be, I have to go to the gym for an hour every day, every other day. I need to eat healthy every day. I need to do all of these things to focus on myself, to make sure that I'm nourished, make sure that I'm empowered, make sure that all of this stuff, no, it doesn't have to be like that. So that's how this can help you elaborate onto the messaging that then puts in context of your life. So say this kind of mess of stuff that I came out with from the card was telling me, whatever the disorder and chaos is in your life, take a break, take a breath, don't obsess over it. You need to also pay attention to yourself in all of that mess. You need to also take a breath. And even if that step is just a little step that helps calm you for a moment or a minute, then that's a positive change for you, So everything comes together. Your intuitive reading gives you where your mindset is towards something. If you're reading for yourself or if you're reading towards someone else, what they see, you can ask someone else, this is the card that I've pulled for you. What do you see in it? And what they see will give you a lot of insight into how to interpret the basic direct meaning of the card towards whatever's going on in their life. And then the book can help you kind of narrow that down into like a more specific or a more broader sense of application towards how they can apply that to whatever's going on in their life. And then this book also gives you a reflection question. And in this instance, the reflection question is, what energizes you on a daily basis? So if it's you, obviously, you would answer that question for yourself. And you would say, what are the things in my life that really just give me a little bit of pep, you know? Is it coffee? Is it sitting on my deck in the morning? Is it, you know, sleeping in for 5 extra minutes before I get up and deal with my kids or my pets or my life or my drive to work, listening to the radio, listening to a specific song? Is it, you know, your favorite snack? Is it, I don't know, wearing a specific item of clothing? What are the things that energize you, that just make you feel a little bit better, so that you feel a little bit more positive about life, about your day, towards other people? What are those little things? Yeah, so I think this deck, I don't know, for me, this deck is just so great. And it's because I really relate to the nature of the deck, you know, which is nature. It's like earth-based. And the imagery is really beautiful and really detailed. It really packs a punch. So definitely, if you're, I think I said this last time, I'll say it every time. If you're looking at getting an oracle deck, if you're looking at getting a tarot deck, find one that resonates with you. Because if you don't like to look at it, and not just like to look at it, because some decks are really beautiful, but you just don't feel connected to them, find one you feel connected to, because that's the one you're going to get the most use out of. Also, don't just buy like 10 of them. Like, really just go online, look at them, watch reviews, go to a store where you can open them. I don't know if that exists, but it must. Because it's important that you have one that resonates with you. Because if you don't, you won't see any messages in the images beyond what is directly there. And really, intuition is what makes a deck most useful to the reader, and thus to the person who's being read for. So I think that's it for tonight, guys. I hope this was helpful to you. I hope you're liking this series, because I'm going to continue it. I think we can get a few more of these out before we start hitting repeats in this pretty thick deck. So yeah, let me know what you thought, what you saw, if you felt like the messaging of the card was accurate to the imagery of the card, and if you'd like to see these going forward. So thanks for joining me here tonight. I hope to see you in the next one. And that will be all for tonight.